Hi, folks. It's Dan Hollifield, and it is time for Last Man Standing. And at the moment, I am the only man standing. Uh, Bill Certain was here in Stupid O'Clock, and I don't know if he found out that I had reposted the link in our little messenger group so that the links do get done. But I'm about to just click over right now and see if I can scroll down to find a private chat with Bill, which I just did, and I am going to redo that link, and hopefully that is the right one. So we shall see. Yes, that's the right code. I see it now. So maybe Bill will be here in just a few minutes. If not, um, you're stuck with me for a little while. I won't go the entire 2 hours because I cannot talk for 2 more hours. But we've got somebody. I just heard the popping in noise. So hang on a second there. Bill, I sent you the link. It's in a private message. So we'll see if that works. This is one of those strange nights. I did have my booster shot today, and I'm feeling just another little bit teensy bit under the weather, but not too bad. So let's see here. Yep, that's the same one. That's the same one. There we go. So we shall see what we shall see. I'm going to go ahead and close out the Stupid O'Clock page. We're no longer in that studio, so um, everything is going just fine. I've got my arm is a little bit achy. It feels like what my wife describes as her sciatica, and so I'm kind of wobbly when I walk, but that's fine. I can deal with that. I'm 64 years old. If I could walk like I did when I was 19, probably be a runway model.
Well, when I was 19, no, 18 is when I had my knee surgery. So I wish I could walk like I was 17.
Mm. Yep.
And this is a night for electronic screw ups for some reason. I kept trying to come in there and it wouldn't let me turn the mic on, and it wanted me to use an avatar instead. And it's like I can't do that like Skunk does.
Yeah, really. That boy's a genius. So I don't even try and keep up. I mean, he has animated backgrounds for his green screen. I wish I could figure that one out.
Me too. That would be wonderful, because you know how I am about cartoons.
Mm-hmm. Oh, I'd probably drive down the highway with a camera pointed out the back window of the car and use about 10 or 15 minutes in a loop of just traffic as I'm going down the road. And that would probably disorient a lot of people and make them car sick, even though we weren't actually in a car. Maybe even me, because I've never tried that before. I've never watched stuff behind an image of me receding into the background.
Well, I've actually drew a few pictures of myself as a comic strip character because I've always wanted to do that. I actually posted one the other day, but never tried to animate anything. I just don't have that technical smarts like Skunk or a couple others that I'm thinking of do.
Well, so different people have different interests and throw themselves into different aspects of whatever it is they like. So even people that like the same thing might not like the same thing about the same thing. So,
and it's not that I don't like it. It's just I just don't have to know. I'm just too dumb. I don't have to know how to do it, or much less probably the patience either. If I did actually try it.
now that I do know, it takes patience. Just over Thanksgiving weekend, after we went out for dinner, we went back over to my mother's, and my niece, who's in college, showed off two of her pieces of animation that she had done for a class. And it was basically, it was not full scale animation. It was like a whiteboard. The frames changed, but there was enough in it to where she had to show the characters fully drawn, as if they were going to be cell animation from different angles, so that you get to see them, uh, uh, side view, 3/4, back view, front view, all of this in the round, so that she would get all the references she would need if the class assignment had been to fully animate the thing. And she did a marvelous job with just the wireframe animation. It was quite entertaining. She had the entire story worked out, and she had to write the story as well as do the animation of it in itself. It looked quite a lot like that old Aha video for Take On Me.
Oh, Take On Me, yeah. Mm-hmm.
Yep, it looked an awful lot like that, but not as detailed.
Kind of like a rough version of rotoscoping or something, maybe.
Sort of, but it was all, like I said, wireframe. It wasn't
right.
There wasn't any live action blended in or anything. So don't get the wrong idea. But she will be able to do that sooner or later. She's a freaking genius, I tell you.
And to answer Ace Bonnie's comment, he said something about BKM would say no poop talk.
Have you heard, Brian?
My response would be everybody poops.
Oh, and now that's going to be an REM song.
Yeah. No, actually, it was a book. Children. Well, I say a children's book, but not in the same sense as Beatrix Potter or Dr. Seuss, but a children's book about teaching the toddler about toiletries.
Mm-hmm. Yep. Well, it is a fact of life that everybody has to learn at a very young age.
Mm-hmm.
And some people never get over it, believe me. Oh.
So, on a completely unrelated subject, and boy, I hate to follow up this after our poop talk, but my niece went with her auntie, as she calls Laura, over to Monticello, Illinois. They had a big Christmas parade today. Mm-hmm. They have a train museum over there, and they have the Polar Express train.
Oh, wow.
Which is typically for the younger kids to do that. And then they also have lunch with Santa Claus, where you could actually sit in one of the train cars and eat lunch with Santa Claus. This is so popular. Laura had to get tickets for this back in June. And but I got to share a picture that she sent me on text. She sent me a lot of pictures of going on. And anyway, that's my bestie Laura, and with my favorite niece Kayla, who turned 13 a couple weeks ago, and which I always tell her, I say, Kayla, you're my favorite niece. And she kind of, and then she stops and she looks at me and she says, well, Uncle Bill, I'm your only niece. And I say, yeah, that's why you're my favorite. And it's kind of an inside joke in a sense, or a run on type thing. Her mom, which is Laura's sister, Jenny, who went with me today since she was what we refer to as Kayla free for the day. She went with me to the funeral. And we get talking about that. And whenever Jenny sees one of her friends and she would introduce me to her friend, she'd say, "This is my best friend, Bill. He's like the big brother I never had." And then I would respond, "And yes, and Jenny is the little sister I never wanted," which she laughs about it. It's a joke, and I love her dearly, and much as I love Kayla and Laura and Jenny and Laura's dad, Steve, they are my adoptive family, and I would not be here today if it wasn't for them. And that's their story that's going in that book of Wendy Lee's. And but anyway, it's just little cutesy things, and I'm hoping that when Kayla gets older, like they went today, she was taking, even though Auntie told Kayla, this Polar Express thing is more for littler kids, and now you're a teenager. Let's leave that for littler kids, but you could still take your picture in this room. And so you're in the room by yourself. So she didn't have to wear her mask, but she said, "Hey, Caleb, let's put the mask on so that years and years from now, when your kids are growing up and they see a picture of you when you were 13, you could tell them the reason why you had to wear the mask. This is what we were going through for hopefully only a couple of years. I don't know how much more now, but it make a good conversation piece."
I would look at the flu of, what was it?
1918.
1918, and see how long that drug out, because we've got just as many people that are anti-face mask and anti-vax now as they did back then, even though the population density was smaller, but by proportions, we got the same amount. So, it's going to go. It's going to go until everybody makes up their mind to.
Well, just yesterday,
each other, basically.
Just yesterday, WBBM radio out of Chicago, and they should pay us for talking about them all the time. But anyway, they had announced that the mayor of Calumet City, Illinois, which is a Chicago suburb, had COVID. And the mayor had all 3 of his shots and still contracted COVID. Now, having said that, he's fine. His symptoms are what I go through every day with nasal drainage, and that's it.
Yep.
But
it's a difference between being in a hospital on a ventilator waiting to die and being inconvenienced a little bit and expecting to make a full recovery.
Now, I don't know if you heard this, but I just heard this today, same station. You can tell what one I listen to a lot, because I'm listening to all news all the time now for some ungodly reason. But they're talking about wanting to make a shot that's going to cover everything, all the variants. Now, which my first thought is, oh, that would be wonderful. And then my second thought immediately was, but how do you know how many there are? You could say, okay, this shot's going to cover all the variants, but then what if we come out with Megatron variant or Optimus Prime variant or whatever? And
you might be able to cover everything that is in existence now, but you're never going to be able to cover all the infinite possibilities there will be later. I believe
and even with this Omicron variant, they're talking about all the mutations of it.
Mm-hmm.
So will it cover that if it continues to mutate? I
haven't
mean,
the
it's hard to.
foggiest idea. I figure this is going to wind up being like the flu, basically. Um, every year, so, excuse me, every year, it's recommended that you get a shot for it. Some people won't get it. Some people will. Some people it'll be really rough on. Some people it won't be rough at all. Eventually, we're going to come to deal with it, and it's our bodies are going to adapt. It's going
Yeah.
to take it's going to take a long, long time, maybe 100 years or so.
Well,
But
what was it that Phil Robertson from Duck Dynasty, the older one with
I
the
couldn't,
long beard, he
I
made a
couldn't tell you.
comment about how people today have all these peanut allergies and different things going on with them, problems, lactose um,
Lactose intolerance, yeah,
intolerance. Thank you. It's late. I couldn't get the word out of my mouth.
yeah,
And he said, but the older people, not so much the issue. And a lot of it was we got dirty. We drank water out of garden hoses and we went, doing things that were allowing our bodies to build up the antibodies to fight all these little
yeah.
funguses and everything that we got into.
Which is not a recommendation for poor hygiene, but still,
Well,
there.
the one thing he said, so go out and eat a cow pie and have your body build up your tolerance to all these things.
Well,
Which I wouldn't advise that, but
politely speaking, I'd recommend he go eat a cow pie or maybe a couple of tons, and
I
we'll
can't even stand to watch them fling them during those cow pie.
oh yeah.
And I know that those cow pie throwing contests are pretty popular, but I can't even watch that.
I grew up in an era where you had to be very, very careful that what you thought was second base wasn't a cow pie.
I've stepped in a few in my time.
Oh, it's kind of
no.
unavoidable if you live out in the country.
Yep, we did, and I mean they.
How's that for poop talk, Ace?
There you go, Ace.
And we even brought celebrities into it.
Except for BKM.
Yeah.
He mysteriously stays away when we're talking poop talk. It almost sounds like a name of a show on the radio. It's Poop Talk with Dan and Bill.
It's 1:30 in the morning. I'm not surprised that Brian is not here. He's a sane person. He's asleep right now. Well, moderately sane, but he is asleep right now.
Oh, he don't have no shows on Sunday yet.
Give him time. No, and I've got two shows I want to watch tonight. The Adventures of the Traveling TARDIS and Cryptid Crunch, and hopefully they will not overlap. And after tonight, Sunday night, then Traveling TARDIS will move back to Tuesdays. But the reason they're on Sundays right now is they're doing a speculation preview about the new episodes of Doctor Who. Then they're watching the episode and trying not to post spoilers. Right. And then after it's over, they'll break down and talk about it, and still not to try and be spoiler heavy, but and then Cryptid Crunch is going to be pretty good too. So they've got. I'd have to go to the other computer to look that up. I've already got it pulled up and waiting for tomorrow night or for later tonight. After day comes today, and then comes.
Yeah.
And now I'm sounding like a Doors song.
Well, my mornings during the week are so busy almost as much as the rest of the day, with the exception of your show and Stupid O'Clock, which I'm on both. I'm watching all the other shows that I watch on the reruns.
Mm-hmm.
And it's just to the point that I can't stop doing what I'm doing. So typically I do what a lot of other people do when they're watching Christian Basil's show or Brian's show or Keisha's, whoever, Ted's, that you're not really watching it. You're just kind of having it on in the background, like you're just listening to the radio while you're doing this and that. And
there have been things that I've had to do in the replay, like when I'm working night shift and I can't see it live. I come home the next morning, and while I'm busy doing something, I'll have it there, and I'll be listening.
Mm-hmm.
But I won't necessarily be on that same browser tab, or I might have a word processor open or be checking my email, but I'm listening to the program, so I know what's going on. And I mean, look at what we do. There's no reason we need a picture. We could do this as an audio podcast and nobody would be any, nobody'd be disappointed not being able to see our bright and shining faces. But there are some moments of comedy that do happen, especially on Stupid O'Clock, that you pretty much, it pays to be watching what's going on. Or if you're really kinky, you could watch me sleep for 4 hours after a Last Man Standing. But I promise you, I keep my clothes on and just so.
Well, the Bible study Facebook group that I'm in, that Wendy Lee is the admin of, we read. Everybody reads on their own, at their own pace, certain Bible passages, and right now we're in 2 Corinthians. So for the month of December, she'll put a calendar at the beginning and then run through everything we're going to read. With me, it's all audio. For one, I don't know why, but for me, if I'm listening to the audio as opposed to just reading it, it sinks in better. I don't know why, it just does. Now, that's not like that with everything, but with scripture, that always seems to ring true. And I do get more out of it. And if there's something that I don't, then I'll comment in the group about it, and other people will chime in and they kind of help you out. Yeah. So I'm thankful for that. And I try to help other people out when I get something and they don't. But it's just easier to listen to a program or listen to something than what you're reading. And by all means, I have a whole bookcase full of books, and there's nothing like cracking one open with a hot cup of coffee or hot chocolate or whatever, and I could be buried in a book for several hours, or however long my butt will allow the sitting.
But that depends on how good the chair is.
Yeah, but hey, when I'm doing stuff around the house and I can enjoy it that way, it's wonderful. I'm getting several things done at one time, and I'm not putting one thing off because of having to come in and comment on every little thing that's going on in the show or what have you. And sometimes I'll go in there saying watching the reruns or whatever, but it's even a little bit just to do that. Or I'll think, I'll get in there and I'll type that in. Hey, I'm watching the rerun. And then by the time it's over, I've turned it off and went to something else, so I forgot. But
it'll be all right. It'll be all right. There are times when I'm at work that I wish that I had a reliable boombox or something where I could I could play audio books while I do the tests
Mm,
on the stuff we make. That way, I mean, it's no different from listening to one of the radio stations, except you got to follow the plot.
right.
And it may be a little bit more entertaining than the same 4 or 5 songs that you've heard on uh, top 10 pop radio for the last 40 years over and over again.
Do you have pretty reliable internet there?
The
That
company does. I don't. There's no
oh,
Wi-Fi.
oh,
Uh,
okay. So
uh,
you can't access it.
no, no. The Wi-Fi that is there is for uh, maintenance men to look at blueprints or wiring diagrams, or engineers to be able to uh, have a group meeting with other engineers or whatnot.
Hmm.
There is a internet access, which, you know, it's company internet access, so it's limited. You can't look up anything you want. You got to be responsible. You know, you get in trouble if the computer reports that you've been looking up
Mm,
some of these websites. But you can. Well, what I was talking about was I've got a little MP3 player.
hmm.
If I could Wi-Fi that to a dependable boom box and just have the speakers up, it wouldn't need internet or anything. Same thing as if you had all this stuff on your phone. Um, I don't put an awful lot on my phone. I don't even have Kindle. I've got the app, but I don't load it up because I want to save space. There are times when I want to use my phone as a camera, and there are times when I want to use my phone as a phone, and there are times when I want to send my wife a text, and that's about it as far as my use of a telephone. Uh, a,
Well,
lot, a lot of people, it's their main computer. I'm not one of those people. I use a real computer as my
mm,
main computer, but I'm glad to have all this stuff in the phone if I were to need it somewhere and had nothing else to use. I mean, I got a Kindle Fire tablet to put my ebooks on so that I can read, and it's absolutely fabulous. I love that thing. Matter of
now,
fact,
do you have audio options on those
audiobook.
books?
I've got some I take advantage of, but it's so seldom that I'm in an environment to where I could actually hear the tablet or the phone without having um, either earbuds or a great big honking external speaker. Because I'm in a factory, it's loud. I have to
Right.
wear earplugs.
I get it. I did that before too, and when we worked our week of third shift, I'd haul in my Pioneer stereo with my Marantz speakers, and I knew that was the only thing that would get over the sound of all those plastic extruders that we had around the
Mm-hmm.
plant, let alone the grinders in the back that made deafening sounds.
Mm-hmm. And it's just like that here. I mean, people get out 120-pound pressure air hoses and clean up, uh, getting the dust off the machines, get it out in the middle of the floor where it can be swept up and into a plastic bag that the forklift can pick up and take to a dumpster outside. There's all the mechanical noise of everything going on.
Hmm.
Um, all the machines make noises. Um, Back in the day, eh, before everybody started bringing in their own radios, you could sit there and not actually look at your machine, but listen to it. And when it made a noise that wasn't the noise it was supposed to make, you knew to jump out of your chair and run over and see what just happened because
Hmm.
something went wrong. That was not a
Yeah.
good noise. That was not a normal noise. So, those days are long gone now because it's gotten noisier and noisier as more automation has been added. Um,
Yeah.
and the company frowns on people walking around with earbuds in because they're not hearing protection. The sounds of all the machinery still get in past the earbuds.
Oh yeah.
Now, if you were going to go to some kind of noise canceling headphones that had a Bluetooth connection or something, and you know that they might allow that if you were to come up with uh, a an eloquent argument for it, or maybe do a test and prove that it actually works as well as the earplugs or headphones, noise canceling headphones or whatever that
Yeah,
we
I
got.
think of the noise canceling shooters muffs that
Yeah,
people would wear to where you could hear somebody talking next to you, but then it
as soon as something goes,
stipend the
as soon
yeah
as something
anything.
goes bang, it blocks that out. Yeah.
Yeah, it's above a certain decibel, and
Hmm.
possibly yeah that might. And you know, I had those back in the day when I worked at Future X, and never had a thought about putting them in those little disposable yellow foam um,
Hmm.
pieces that you stuck in your ear, and half the
Yep.
time they never stayed in there,
I know
and they
exactly which ones you're talking about. Yep.
yeah, and they never really did do that good of a job
Well,
on
if you
that.
were willing to undergo a lot of pain in your ear, you could shove them far enough in your head, but
Yeah.
they never would fit right. The orange foam ones are okay. They will shape themselves. They're much softer than the yellow ones.
Hmm.
It's a much softer foam, so they will shape themselves to your ear canal much better, and uh, and do
I
a
had
good
some
job.
that wasn't so bad, and they were actually attached to a cord. But once again, as comfortable as they were, they just wasn't blocking out all the noise.
Hmm.
And if you went back into the grinding room, I would have those on, and then I would have to have the
The headphones on top of them.
headphones that they provided in addition to that, because you're chopping up plastic at a certain rate. And when, especially if you're throwing in ABS in there and grinding all that up, that made a racket like no other. It
Hmm.
was horrible.
Well,
And
basically,
I
the earplugs are good to reduce things by 30 decibels. And
mhm.
those machines you're talking about are much louder than 30.
Oh yeah.
So, and the headphones on top of the earplugs, that'd drop it down to like, reduce it by 60 or maybe even 75, depending on how good the headphones were.
Climb up there, we had back in the grinding room, all the grinders were on a big catwalk that was about 15 foot off the ground, and you'd have your big cardboard boxes that were 4x4, and they were probably almost 4 foot tall because they held 1,200 pounds of
Hmm.
plastic material that you would use to put your mix in, whether it was um, ABS or whatever it was. And
Yeah.
then the regrinds, they would reincorporate those in with the mixes as well. So the first time around, it was a pure blend with just the plastic pellets and the colorant. And then afterwards, when you're running so much off and having to scrap so much
Yeah.
to get your line worked out, then like with me, I had a small grinder at the back of my line that just stood on the ground. It was a 6 foot tall grinder. I would throw stuff in there, and you'd have to be careful because it wasn't as powerful, and it wouldn't grind stuff up as quickly as what the big monsters back in the grinding room would, but
Hmm.
it would be enough that I could grind up a box of plastic regrinds that I could mix a certain percentage of that in with a new blend. And then that saves obviously on the raw material that you would have, because they would only have so much of it there, and you couldn't do a new blend every time. And actually, a lot of times, by mixing in the regrinds with the colorant and the raw plastic pellets, it really kind of improved it a little bit.
Mm-hmm.
So there were
Ah,
possibilities for it all, but um, uh, I never had a helper full time like a lot of the other lines did. And my line was the fastest running line on there. So I rarely ever got a chance to just stand there and drink my tea, or I didn't smoke or anything like the other guys did. But,
mm-hmm.
I couldn't really relax so much because when I wasn't, uh, uh, taking my micrometer and running it across the sheet to seeing if everything's in spec, or refilling. I was refilling up my hopper, or I was running a bunch of scrap back to my grinder. And so I was, which it made the night go by quicker,
Yeah.
but I'm almost comatose by the end of the shift, you
Yeah.
know.
Yeah. You're constantly moving. You're constantly
Oh
lifting.
yeah.
Constantly bending. Yeah. It takes a lot out of you. Factory work is very hard. Um, and it can be very rewarding, and not just monetarily. I used to joke with the people that they go, yeah, I went to the gym this morning at 4 a.m. and worked out, and now I'm here at work and I'm really tired. And I'm going, dude, they're paying you $20 an hour to lift weights. This is the ultimate uh, country club here,
Hmm.
exercise club. They pay you. All you got to do is do the aerobics instead of sit down. You know?
Yeah, the only drawback to mine, other than the fact that I hardly ever saw my family a whole lot because of especially third shift, but
Yep, that is a drawback indeed. I
it
know
was
that.
the treater fumes and fumes from the plastic. And I thought I was going to die the death of a coal miner
Mm-hmm.
with black lung because of all just the treater fumes alone, let alone the plastic fumes and everything else. And of course, we were in a big, huge pole barns. So in the summertime, it was always usually about 30 degrees warmer inside than it was outside. And then
Yep.
uh, this time of year, you kept moving just to keep warm.
Yep. It's always colder than it is outside in the winter and hotter than it is outside in the summer. That's just the way of manufacturing. Basically, there's no way they can afford to air condition the entire building. And
Nope.
matter of fact, that would probably ruin some of the processes going on that require a lot of heat.
Yeah,
So,
they had fans everywhere and a lot of
oh yeah,
exhaust
yeah.
fans. And then they had the big industrial floor fans, but all that was doing
Yep.
was pushing around hot air.
Well, still, even that, once you're sweating,
Mm-hmm.
any temperature air getting blown across you helps that sweat
Mm-hmm.
evaporate and cool your body. It's not perfect by any means, and it's
Oh, no.
sometimes it's not even pleasant, but it works to keep you alive.
We,
Plus, you
we
can't
had
hydrate
two,
constantly.
we had two air conditioners, two window unit air conditioners in the whole plant. One of them was in the plant manager's office, always ice cold in there. And needless to say, very few people were allowed in there, even for a couple minutes. The other one was in the break room where you would go have your lunch, and that air conditioner was always broke.
Well, ours, unfortunately, the people I work with have been given the passcode to set the digital thermostat. So it's always uh, very cold in the break room. And I've gone in there and I've had to wear a coat in the break room. And my teeth chattering while I'm trying to eat.
Hmm.
I have to take my lunch plate to the microwave and reheat it 3 times within 25 minutes so that I can eat a hot meal because the
Mm-hmm.
air conditioner is so low it freezes my food.
Yeah.
Now, it's great if you've got a cold drink, It'll keep it from getting warm, but if you want your spaghetti hot, you better make plans to walk back and forth to the microwave a couple of times.
Well, I made really decent money working at Future X, but for all the years that I did that, which thank God it wasn't too many, but enough. If I knew then what I know now about it, I would have quit it in a heartbeat and got a job at half the pay at Rockville's feed store or the local grocery store, which they had an IGA back then. I think they still do, actually, and be able to see my family on a regular basis. It was hard. It was really hard.
It is.
And especially when your wife was working the opposite schedule that you were all the time, so you rarely saw her. If the kids were at school, there were most of the time you didn't see them, and then a lot of times when you were home during the summertime and on third shift when the kids were home, I felt bad for them because they had to be quiet for me to attempt to sleep during the day, which was a rare occurrence when that happened. But I would have to, it was really rough. And there are a lot of, it's like that old Beatles song, "Money Can't Buy You Love." I lost quite a bit because of that job. And I won't say that was the ruination of my marriage to my wife, but it did contribute.
You lost a lot of quality time.
Yeah. And one day, I worked there when after we had separated, and I was there by myself for, about 7 months. And my brother calls me and says, "Bill, Mom's sick. You got to move back home, help take care of her." My brother was going through a lot of issues because of his diabetes, and he was on the verge of losing his job because he was losing his eyesight. And my sister-in-law, who I just said goodbye to today at her funeral, was busy working her keister off and trying to help out with my brother and my two nephews that they had just adopted at the time. And so I had thought, I got to leave. I won't say Rockville was paradise, but it's a very Norman Rockwell-esque community. Mm-hmm. The whole county is, with all the Amish people and the covered bridges and beautiful countryside all around you. And I had a really nice church family there that didn't want to see me go any more than I wanted to go, but I had I had a responsibility to my family, and for all the years that my mother took care of me, is when I was young, it was time to return the favor, and moved back and got a job at Lowe's, and that's where I met Jenny, Laura's sister, because she was working on a house that she had just bought, a cute little cottage style house, and up in the north end of town, about a block away from, a couple blocks away from where Carl and Donna live. And she kept coming in about every day. And you got this girl coming in that's got the beautiful looks of Shania Twain and Sandra Bullock put together. And you pay attention to her because of that. But then when she comes in, I need help with this, or where is this, or can you help me on this is what I'm trying to do, and I run into a snag, and you're talking to her about things every day, and you're thinking, wow. And she's doing this all by herself. And then so we slowly became friends, and then she invited me over, and because I wanted to see what she was doing, and I was marveling at what she was able to do. Someone who was in her late 20s at the time, I believe, and it was unreal. And she didn't have any prior knowledge or experience of doing any of this, but she was YouTubing and asking people, myself included, and just she had a knack for learning and absorbing all of this information required to do the task at hand. And so there's, oops, sorry about that. My phone's go. Well, it's my smartwatch. I mute my phone, but it doesn't want to mute the smartwatch.
I've got to run off to the fridge. I'll be right back. I'm not even going to kill the camera.
Oh, okay. Well, gee, folks, Ace, I'm not sure if you're still out there. You made a comment about 12:10 a.m., which was quite a little while ago. But if you're still out there, we're glad that you are. And if not, we totally understand, because it is well past the witching hour on my end, Central Time here. So it's 12:51 in the AM hours. And I know it's an hour later where Dan is there. And but anybody who is watching, we greatly appreciate that. And no matter what time it is, we greatly appreciate it. And I just greatly appreciate being a part of it. So anyway, because there were many months that I was on the other end of the show. So this is quite different for me. And now I'm done vamping because Dan is back.
Oh, I can tell that I'm going to spend a lot of time tomorrow in bed. The normal after effects of the vaccination are starting to kick in a little bit. My arm is still only moderately sore. I mean, it doesn't feel like I've got hit by a baseball or anything like that, but it's noticeable when I raise my arm. And the temperature is, I'm keeping it warmer back here than I normally would. So going out in the rest of the house is like diving into a swimming pool.
Well, when I go to bed, I typically keep my bedroom a little cooler than I do, like, say, the living room or the kitchen. Because with my thyroid condition and the breathing problems that I've had, and to a lot of extent still do, which the thyroid pills that I take help quite a bit, but it's just easier for me to sleep at night of what I do if it's a little cooler.
Yeah.
And so in the summertime, you can imagine I have a fan going, not aimed at me, but just to circulate air in the room. And I don't do that in the wintertime. I know plenty of people who do, and I'm thinking, man, that's got to make it rather cool, or you got to have that thermostat up quite a bit.
Well, some of them only need the white noise the fan is making. So they make alarm clocks that play white noise or waves crashing on a beach or things like that. I had one for a while, And that was a perfect way to go to sleep. You turn on Waves on a beach, you're out. It don't take long at all.
There's a commercial on TV. I think it always says, stop what you're doing for the next 15 seconds. And it usually shows it's rain. You're hearing and seeing the rain, and then the little clock goes around counting down the 15 seconds. I think it's like calm.com or something like that. And it's basically just what you're been talking about.
Yeah. There are several YouTube channels that do that. Some of them have recordings that go on for 14, 15, 16 hours. Some
Wow.
of them run an hour, 2 hours, 4 hours. You know, that's the usual thing, just to help somebody get to sleep, but not play all night long.
My thing was that after being married for a number of years with a wife, 2 daughters, 3 dogs, 2 Russian hamsters, and about 7 cats, which they were barn cats, but it got down to me and my beagle Snoopy, and things were awful quiet, and I couldn't sleep for various reasons, but the quietness of it was part of it. And so I had cassette tapes of old time radio shows.
Yeah.
And in particularly, I would play several, but most often or not, I would play Lum and Abner.
Oh yeah.
That would just have the organ music at the beginning for the theme song, and then usually everything else after that was just conversation back and forth between Lum and Abner and Squire and all the, Grandpappy Spears and all the characters on that show. And it was the talking in the background, and I would have it very low when I would play these, and they were basically an hour-long tape that would have several episodes on each side. And I had the stereo at the time that when it would finish one side, it would flip it to the other. So in a sense, it would kind of be like a continuous loop if I left it going all night long. And
yeah,
before one side was over, I was usually asleep by then, because I would only have it just barely loud enough to hear it, but not understand what they were talking about.
Yeah, ambient noise, like somebody in the living room and you've got the bedroom door shut.
Exactly.
You can hear there's a voice, but you can't really pick out the words.
It was one of those maybe false sense, but a sense of some sort of security that I heard somebody talking. And I was going through a lot at the time, and because of everything, and it's a wonder what little things like that will do. So now every once in a while, if I have issues about sleeping at night, and I did last night because of knowing what I had to do today, and thank God for my little sister Jenny. I would not have gotten through it without her. And but I, of course, not having those tapes anymore, cassette tapes, I did like what you mentioned, pull up YouTube, and I found some radio shows on there, and they ran a few hours of that. And one of them were Lum and Abner. And so the one last night I put on, it wasn't Lum and Abner. Well, actually, it wasn't an old time radio show at all, but it was a radio show that they did around Halloween time. So they were talking about ghost stories and things, and it was just all talk, no music or anything. And once again, I had it just loud enough to hear it, but not understand what they were saying. And it helped. I still didn't sleep very well last night, but I slept better than what I would have.
Yeah, I understand completely. I do. I've been through not the same thing, but very similar things from time to time. And when you're used to people in the house and suddenly there aren't people in the house anymore, you
It's
do need something to fall back on.
it's rough. There's everybody needs somebody, and I'm not going to go into Dean Martin, but
Well, that was my
um,
thought. I mean,
yeah, but it is true. And there's reasons, and so when somebody posts something on Facebook about them having a bad day, I know a lot of people do it to get attention and all that, and I kind of get that, and I know a lot of people don't agree with it, and they say, oh, keep your personal life personal. And believe me, I typically keep my personal life personal. And I did make one post tonight saying that what I had to do today, and I know there's probably still people commenting on it, and of course I appreciate their kind thoughts and prayers and everything, but that's not why I did it. It was a little therapeutic.
mm-hmm.
And I have a comic book artist friend a popular comic book artist friend that worked for DC, who's been going through a rough time for a few years now. And he's known for putting things out there. And I think it's therapy for him to do it. But then
Mm-hmm.
he has gotten some criticism in the comments and that's rather very cruel. And he doesn't deserve it. And I think a lot of people are misinterpreting things. And of course, um, he reacts to it, which
Mm-hmm.
is, I wished he wouldn't do because of what he's going through anyway to begin with. And I won't say any more about it because I don't want to give it away. And there's probably a few people out there. Oh yeah, I know who Bill's talking about. That
Well,
might
right,
also be friends with him, but
right of privacy is a thing.
right. And so to the people that say, oh, keep that stuff off of Facebook, we don't want that or whatever, I would say, well, where do you want it? Because there are people that have to let it out,
Mm-hmm.
whether they're
It does you good to
bitching
vent
about it.
every once in a while. Yeah,
Right. Yeah. I don't care if they're bitching about something,
and if
calmly discussing it, or totally upset and crying about it. If it needs to get out, it needs to get out. It's something poison in your body that you're trying to expel.
and the thing is, if somebody doesn't want to hear it, they know where the door is.
Yep.
They can
Just
they
turn.
can stroll on by, or they can go away.
Yep. And I know this person had to block a couple people
Yep.
because of that, because it was really affecting them. And then they were talking about other things that made them upset. And um, a couple times this person said, I'm getting off of Facebook. I can't deal with this anymore. And they would be gone for a while.
Yep.
And then they would come back because there is something about this. As
There
much
is
as
some
we
therapy
complain,
value to it.
yeah, much as we complain about Facebook and the bots and all the meta idiots out there that run this platform, there's something good about it too.
Mm-hmm.
And I can see a lot of good in there. I can see a lot of bad too, but like you just said, scroll on by it.
You really. If you don't like what you see, move your finger. Scroll on by.
Yeah.
Now, Bill, I hate to cut this short. I know we usually have another hour, but I'm feeling a little rough, so I want to go to bed.
Totally understand.
And
And I hope your day is a little bit more at ease tomorrow
well,
because of your arm. And
I am probably going to spend a very late day sleeping in bed, and only
mhm.
part of that's because I've got to go back on night shift Monday night.
Right, right.
It'll do me good just to crawl into bed and get quiet and do some hibernate.
And now, how will that affect you on the shows this upcoming week?
Will not be available Thursday at all,
Okay,
but for Saturday, I'll be able to do both shows. But
okay.
Thursday, unless the paperwork comes through to put me back on daytime only, Thursday's out. And
And I'm hoping that they get you back on your
yeah, me
regular
too.
routine.
Me too.
And
It's much easier on my body. Much
well,
hap-
you've earned it after all the years. I mean, I know you're very close to your retirement, and you got
Mhm.
the countdown clock going on that. But regardless of how close you are or not, you put your time in, and there are a lot of youngins out there that can take up the slack, and they
and,
should.
and I'll be glad to teach them everything I know.
Well,
Just
yeah,
yeah,
exactly. That's the whole thing. When Laura started working where she does right now, and even though she's part time, she really kicks butt at it. And there's times where she is stuck somewhere at work when she needs to be doing her ordering and several other things at her job, and she uh, gets held up there. And actually, yesterday, uh, when we went to the auction last night, I said, "Oh, well, how long did you get stuck on the register?" Because that kind of determines how much she got done on the floor and how
mhm.
much of her ordering that she got done. Which she doesn't order on Fridays, but she does on Mondays and Wednesdays, and usually comes in on Fridays. And she said they actually let me do my thing all day long. It was I can't remember how the terminology that she used, but it was said the only time I would have to go on a register if they had a rush. You go on, help them thin the lines out, and then you go back off and do your thing.
Yep.
So that was great, and I was glad she was able to do that. And um, she's a very hard worker, but once again, there's some youngins there that they can be up front all
Yep.
day, so she can do what she needs to do. It's same with you. It's time they pass the torch.
Yep. And for the folks at home and on the rewatches, I'm very sorry that this is not the normal length show, but I claim extenuating circumstances. It's I'm feeling a little bit rough now, and
Yeah.
it's just one of those things. Don't worry, I'm all right. Everything will be fine after I get some sleep. It's just you know, everybody. Well, a lot of people have had delayed reactions to the booster
Hmm.
shots and the vaccines themselves, and it just so happens that mine is kicking in now. I didn't expect it to until sometime tomorrow, but
Yep.
these things they happen. So
Listen to your body, and
mhm.
time to recharge.
Yep. Well,
Take care of
you
it. But
you have a good
um,
night, Bill, and
you too.
I'll see
And
you. I'll see you for sure. If not Friday night in the green room, then Saturday night if you're able to come to Stupid O'Clock or Last Man Standing. So
okay,
look,
you take
look,
care. Bye, Candias.
bless you. And folks, like once again, I am sorry. It's just one of those things. I'm not feeling 100%, so I'm going to gear down and go crawl in bed and hibernate for several hours, and everything will be fine. you have a good night yourselves, and take care of yourselves, because there's no point in me sitting here by myself talking to myself. I do this because you're there and you get some enjoyment out of it. And some of my friends come in and stay up late, and they're not easy to unwind and get ready to go to bed like a lot of people do. But there's nothing wrong with that either. So I'm going to gently fade away here and play the end credits and then end the show. So thank you very much, and good night.